when cosmetic procedures cross the line? Where does the boundary lie when modifying one's physical features becomes excessive? Does it cross into questionable territory when individuals inject themselves with medications designed for diabetes patients solely for slimming purposes? Does it happen when people fill their faces until the natural structure becomes unrecognizable? Or does it occur when surgical interventions permanently transform their characteristics? The threshold of what society deems reasonable continues to shift backward with each new day. Medical interventions that would have caused shock merely a decade ago now seem ordinary, prompting questions about our collective direction. The worldwide cosmetics sector produces over $650 billion annually, surpassing both cinema and recording industry revenues together. Famous individuals invest hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars, transforming their physical presentation. As healthcare technology progresses, the catalog of novel enhancement options will only expand. We're probably moving toward an era where encountering unaltered faces becomes uncommon, though one might suggest we've reached that point already. When examining numerous performers who shaped our formative years, they scarcely mirror their former selves. In this examination, we'll scrutinize 7 famous individuals who chose to gamble and permanently modify their facial features. Dakota Johnson. Dakota Johnson has maintained visibility in the entertainment industry for more than 10 years. From her appearance in The Social Network through 50 Shades of Grey to Madam Web, she's participated in various productions, though for an extended period, Dakota wasn't particularly recognized as a major Hollywood stunner. She possessed more of an accessible, approachable appearance, which essentially defined her persona. However, this perception has shifted in recent years. Anyone spending time on digital platforms now encounters numerous clips celebrating Dakota's attractive appearance, with some accumulating millions of views. What actually transformed? Examining photographs from her 2010s era reveals several noticeable differences. The most apparent change involves her hairstyle. Dakota's forehead measures on the larger end, and after adopting bangs with longer hair, her facial proportions improved significantly. Her smile also evolved. Previously, she displayed a space between her front teeth, which has since disappeared. She explained having a permanent retainer since approximately age 13 that was adhered to her teeth's rear surface, and she experienced considerable neck discomfort recently. Her orthodontist determined removing it might help, potentially allowing her jaw to expand, which resolved her issues as her gap naturally closed. Hair and dental work alone can create substantial changes. However, her transformation encompasses more than these elements. Dakota Johnson's lateral profile differs from its appearance several years prior. This isn't merely 50 Shades of Cosmetics application. Her jawline appears more sculpted and chin more prominent without sagging tissue beneath. The nasal tip seems more elevated, potentially indicating surgical rhinoplasty or non-invasive liquid nose reshaping with injectable fillers or perhaps some Botox for tip elevation. At 36, a comprehensive facelift seems improbable, though her neck alterations are definitely noticeable. This could involve submental fat removal via liposuction, laser-based fat reduction, or deoxycholic acid injections for eliminating under-chin fullness. A neck lift remains possible, but less typical for her age group. Additionally, another intervention people have theorized about is lower blepharoplasty, an operation addressing the under-eye region by eliminating or repositioning fat deposits to diminish puffiness and establish smoother contours. Historically, Dakota frequently appeared with prominently puffy under-eyes from excessive fat accumulation there. Currently, they look flatter, smoother, and considerably more refined. Interestingly, Dakota is now broadly perceived as more appealing in her mid-30s than during her 20s, which somewhat contradicts the typical storyline regarding women's aging in entertainment. Most of Dakota's modifications occurred subsequently. However, for numerous actresses, that pressure emerges much sooner, as demonstrated by Anya Taylor-Joy's experience. Anya Taylor-Joy gained prominence during the pandemic following The Queen's Gambit's release. During a period when most individuals remained home consuming unprecedented amounts of television, she occupied center stage as the lead in one of Netflix's most viewed series. Her appearance became integral to her attraction. The widely spaced eyes, the full cheeks, the distinctive lips. She possessed striking features, particularly because they deviated from conventional Hollywood standards. However, over recent years, something has shifted. Her face appears considerably slimmer and more chiseled than previously, especially throughout the midface and cheeks, creating a much sharper, more angular look. In 2023, at 27 years old, observers noted potential buccal fat removal signs. The region where buccal fat typically resides appears more hollowed bilaterally. Because buccal fat surgery gained tremendous popularity last year, she may have undergone this intervention to achieve that more model-like appearance, featuring more prominent cheekbones and hollowing in the buccal fat zone. When examining a broader range of photographs, simple weight reduction as an explanation becomes inadequate. Even maintaining healthy body weights, the volume loss in her cheeks remains dramatic. Additionally, multiple celebrities debuting identical looks around that time frame strongly suggests surgical intervention. Buccal fat removal carries significant risks. While it can enhance facial definition, the fat doesn't regenerate, meaning the hollowed appearance often intensifies over time. Since we naturally lose facial fat and volume through aging anyway, the procedure can actually accelerate rather than prevent the aging process. Buccal fat removal isn't the only modification people have observed. Anya also appears to have undergone another cosmetic intervention, one that's popular both in Hollywood and increasingly among ordinary individuals. In 2024, at 28 years old, there are indications of veneers being placed. Within the last approximately 2 years, she likely had veneers installed at least for the central and lateral incisors. Anya's transformation demonstrates how early the pressure now begins. She's only in her 20s, but it extends beyond that. Performers of every age experience it, and it's not exclusively women. Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt has ranked among Hollywood's biggest performers for over 30 years. From the beginning, audiences weren't merely fascinated with his abilities, they were captivated by his appearance. He represented the quintessence of masculine attractiveness. Not exclusively for his face, but also his physique. The muscular Fight Club body, the jawline, the hair. Brad became the standard. However, time eventually affects everyone. As Brad progressed through his 50s toward his 60s, aging signs became increasingly evident. His face started losing volume. The tissue around his eyes and jaw displayed clear laxity signs. Wrinkles deepened, and gravity commenced its inevitable work. Then in 2023, Brad appeared at Wimbledon, and his face looked completely revitalized. If you've wondered why Brad Pitt at 60 years old appears to be aging in reverse, continue watching to discover what he's undergone. 4 years earlier in 2020, he exhibited normal aging indicators: deep static lines, volume depletion in the eye and midface regions, and some tissue laxity in the lower face. Why does this occur? The facial skeleton provides the foundation for muscle, fat deposits, and skin. As we age, changes occur across all these layers. We experience bone resorption, fat pad shrinkage, muscle tone loss, and skin thinning. His transformation became noticeable at last year's Wimbledon. Observe the facial change and how more youthful he appears. Viewing him from the lateral profile, the lower face contour change is remarkably impressive. You can identify this as facelift-related by locating this scar. This represents the classic facelift scar appearance. During the intervention, surrounding skin is elevated, which can alter earlobe shape and position. He's essentially returned temporally to his early 2000s facial appearance, which is also ironic given his portrayal of Benjamin Button. 3 years separate these photographs, and the changes around the mid and lower face are obvious. Compared to other procedures discussed, a facelift is most extreme. It's major surgery, large incisions, general anesthesia, extended recovery, and permanent structural facial alterations. However, high risk often yields high reward, and in Brad's situation, it succeeded. He's 62 years old, yet arguably appears more youthful now than a decade ago. Interestingly, conversation regarding Brad's cosmetic work only truly exploded following his Wimbledon appearance. In reality, he'd been making smaller adjustments for years, including cheek fillers and skin resurfacing treatments. Brad maintains good skincare, possibly receives laser resurfacing or chemical peels. Early scarring visible in his 20s and 30s now appears gone. Perhaps that was simply some acne scarring ultimately resurfaced and improved. This demonstrates that even when celebrities aren't undergoing surgical procedures and making dramatic changes, they're still investing substantially in continuous maintenance and non-surgical treatments to enhance their appearance. In Brad's situation, he still resembles himself, or perhaps better. However, public response to Miley Cyrus's cosmetic modifications hasn't been as complimentary. Miley Cyrus. Miley Cyrus has lived nearly her complete existence in the public spotlight. From her early Disney Channel days portraying Hannah Montana through her chaotic and controversial transformation during her 20s, we've witnessed everything. Consequently, her face ranks among the most extensively documented in contemporary pop culture. This degree of constant visibility makes hiding or concealing cosmetic work extremely difficult. In recent years, she appears to have undergone considerable work. Comparing Miley's pictures from 2019 to 2025, she almost resembles a completely different individual. Looking back further to her Hannah Montana period, the contrast becomes even more pronounced. Her nose appears broader, and her eyes are significantly more hooded. Many online observers have been commenting on Miley Cyrus's recent appearance differences. Examining her eye region, her eyes appear more open. She may have undergone upper blepharoplasty surgery, removing excess skin to make eyes appear more open. Regarding her nose, it appears much slimmer, potentially indicating surgery. She also appears to have lost substantial volume in her midface, especially the buccal region. Upper blepharoplasty is becoming increasingly common in Hollywood daily. We've observed it with individuals like Emma Stone, Bradley Cooper, and Mandy Moore. Miley simply arrived there earlier than most. Nose jobs aren't novel either, and she seems to have had hers performed for years. However, the changes people currently focus on are the buccal fat removal and the teeth. Her face has lost considerable softness it previously possessed, and her smile changed completely after receiving veneers that were oversized for her mouth. In numerous photographs, her mouth actually remains open because of them. Fortunately, unlike interventions such as upper blepharoplasty or buccal fat removal, veneers can be modified, adjusted, or replaced if they don't function properly. In interviews from recent weeks, she appears to have had them resized. Her smile now appears much closer to what people remember. When celebrities make significant appearance changes, they expose themselves to criticism. In Miley's situation, though, her fan base largely remained supportive. However, that wasn't the outcome for Erin Moriarty, because when her appearance changed, the reaction was severe. Erin Moriarty is best recognized for portraying Starlight on The Boys. From the early seasons, a significant component of her appeal was her approachable appearance, very girl next door and naturally attractive in a manner that didn't feel excessive. Numerous fans connected with her, not exclusively because of the character, but because of her appearance. For the initial few seasons of the show, that remained consistent. Season after season, she resembled the same Erin. However, somewhere between seasons 3 and 4, that began changing. In 2024, Erin posted a photograph to Instagram and people were genuinely shocked. That natural beauty she possessed was gone, replaced by the stereotypical Instagram model aesthetic. For many people, it felt like the change emerged from nowhere. However, looking back to approximately when Season 3 aired, the work had already begun accumulating. In 2021, at 27 years old, what's visible is some Botox introduction to the forehead, glabella, and crow's feet. There are also rhinoplasty signs. Erin's nose appears less bulbous at the tip. She has a smoother dorsum or bridge without that small bump she previously had. There are upper blepharoplasty signs. Erin has more tarsal platform showing. There's more hollowing present, which can actually make someone appear older. Erin also appears to have lip filler, which wasn't visible in earlier images. By 2024, after continuing with fillers and enhancements, the difference was dramatic. Combined with heavy makeup in that photograph, it makes sense why it went viral. The reaction was harsh. Comment sections filled rapidly with people expressing various unkind things and questioning what she'd done to her face. Media personality Megyn Kelly even dedicated a podcast segment to criticizing Erin's appearance. The backlash grew so intense that Erin eventually posted on Instagram, denying the work before deactivating her account altogether. However, even withdrawing didn't really stop it. The commentary simply moved elsewhere. That level of scrutiny is difficult to imagine, especially when focused entirely on appearance. Currently, another celebrity experiencing that pressure's weight is Selena Gomez. Selena Gomez. Selena Gomez ranks among the planet's most famous individuals. She grew up on Disney, transitioned into pop stardom, and cultivated a fiercely protective fan base. Unlike some other celebrities examined, Selena's appearance has always been intertwined with something considerably more complicated: her health. Selena has lupus, an autoimmune disease where the immune system attacks the body's own tissues, frequently causing inflammation, swelling, fatigue, and requiring long-term medication. Throughout the years, she's been very transparent about that diagnosis and how medication affects her body. Consequently, any conversation regarding her appearance instantly becomes sensitive. People quickly dismiss it, and any cosmetic work suggestion is usually treated as cruel or unfair, but that hasn't prevented the conversation from occurring. In recent years, Selena's face has changed in ways people struggle to explain through health alone. When she released the In the Dark music video 2 months ago, the speculation reached a new peak. In it, her face looks completely transformed, and it sparked a huge social media reaction. A double board-certified facial plastic surgeon noted significant facial change. It appears she underwent buccal fat removal, some jowling present for some reason. She probably had upper eyelid blepharoplasty. As visible, she's lost considerable fullness in the upper eyelid. This resembles an A-frame deformity where excessive fat was removed, resulting in hollow-looking eyes. Conservative approaches are always preferable. What makes Selena's situation different from everyone else discussed is the ambiguity. Some observable changes can be attributed to lupus and medication, but some certainly cannot. Attempting to separate the two creates complexity. Beyond obvious changes in Selena's face shape, people have also identified veneers, Botox, and lip filler. Adding everything together produces someone who hardly resembles themselves anymore. Unfortunately, the same applies to Emily Blunt. Emily Blunt has been a Hollywood fixture for nearly 20 years. She's worked consistently at a high level, moved easily between blockbusters and prestige films, and built a reputation as a serious, respected actress. For most of that time, her appearance was never really the focus. It wasn't something people spent much time discussing. If there was one noticeable change over the years, it was her teeth. At some point during the mid-2010s, Emily appears to have had veneers done. They brightened her smile but stripped away some character. Beyond that, though, any cosmetic work felt fairly subtle and easy to overlook. However, that started changing in the early 2020s. By the time Emily appeared at the 2023 Oppenheimer premiere, the difference was difficult to miss. At the Oppenheimer premiere, an immediate change in her midface and cheekbone structure is visible. It's much fuller and wider, likely related to dermal filler treatment. When viewing her face from 3 years ago, the midsection looks more proportionate and balanced with the rest of her face. Then, contrasting with how she appears now, you can observe the change in this facial portion. What can happen if filler is placed too far back over the cheekbone is that it can spread into the fat pad located over the temporal bone, leading to facial widening. In contrast, when excessive filler is placed in this facial part, it can affect smiling and make someone appear overfilled, as in Emily's case. We've observed this previously with Courtney Cox, where there's facial widening in the same area as Emily, and also cheek bunching when smiling. Since then, the changes have become more apparent. In August 2025, Emily appeared on Vogue Hong Kong's cover, and the photographs immediately sparked online discussion. Across Reddit and social media, people expressed the same sentiment. She looked barely recognizable. Then, just 1 month later, in September 2025, that speculation intensified further. During her Venice Film Festival appearance promoting the Smashing Machine, circulated photos made it genuinely difficult at first glance to identify her compared to how she looked just 2 years earlier, and especially compared to the 2010s. The difference was striking. At that point, the conversation expanded beyond social media into the press, with rumors circulating about more invasive work, including potential facelift possibilities. Taking things back a few years, we can appreciate there's a softness element about her features with lost definition around the jawline and neck region. While weight loss can contribute to facial definition, her overall face now has a much more lifted, tighter, and contoured appearance. What's really apparent is the transition between jawline and neck. It's much sharper and more defined. Evidence appears near the earlobe of a possible surgical face and neck lift. Using this photograph as comparison, there are 3 anatomical features to point out. How the ear appears elongated. The earlobe has changed in shape and position, and there's a slight prominence by the ear as well, indicating a possible surgical scar. At just 42 years old, this would be considered early for a facelift. However, like most cosmetic trends, once something becomes normalized, the age people begin doing it drops quickly. Conclusion. The changes observed throughout this examination might seem peculiar, especially when in many instances they don't actually improve someone's appearance. However, Hollywood isn't the real world. It's an isolated environment. In that environment, cosmetic work isn't perceived as extreme, it's perceived as necessary. When everyone surrounding you is tweaking, lifting, and filling, remaining natural stops feeling like the default and starts feeling like a risk. That's the unsettling component. The standard keeps shifting and faces are now being altered earlier and earlier, long before aging has genuinely set in. At this point, the most radical action a celebrity can take isn't pursuing